Hello. This is the fifth episode of the Reading Block. In the previous episode, we presented three types of questions used in the reading test of the TOEFL exam: rhetorical purpose, vocabulary, and reference, and said that we would discuss how to find the answers to these types of questions in the following episode. So there we go. We will start with the rhetorical purpose question. Let's see. What is rhetorical purpose? It seems very complex, but it is not. Rhetorical purpose is just the reason why the writer included some information in the text. It is the answer to the question, why is these here? Writers don't just put any information in their texts. They have a reason, a motive, a purpose. So what are the most common reasons writers include information in their texts? Especially in the case of the TOEFL reading test, because we got these reasons from the alternative answers used in the test. These are the most common rhetorical purposes or reasons. 1. To show or to illustrate. 2. To account for or to explain. 3. To support. 4. To refute or to oppose. 5. To criticize or to question. 6. To contrast or to compare. Now let's explore each of them. To show or to illustrate is the purpose of giving examples. So, if the information is given in the text as an example, this is the reason we need to choose show or illustrate. An example is something that represents the information the writer gives. Let's consider a short passage about fossil fuel. Fossil fuels have traditionally been used to power machines. Petrol, diesel, and aviation kerosene are the most common types of fossil fuel in use today. The information presented is about fossil fuels. Petrol, diesel, and kerosene represent types of fossil fuel, so are used as examples. A possible rhetorical purpose question based on this short passage could be: why does the writer mention petrol, diesel, and kerosene? The answer is to illustrate fossil fuels. To account for or to explain, we know what an explanation looks like in written English, don't we? The writer may give causes, reasons, or details that relate to the information presented. Keeping with the fossil fuels example, information given to account for or explain the need for renewable sources of energy could look like this. Because it takes a long time for fossil fuels to be produced in nature, these sources of energy are considered not renewable, so it is important to look for alternative sources that can be renewed. To support is the rhetorical reason to give information that agrees or strengthens what was presented. Check this out. It is widely known that the world's fossil fuels reserve is running low and is coming to an end rather sooner than later. This information supports the need for renewable sources of energy. To refute or oppose is the rhetorical function of disagreeing. It is the opposite of support. Check it out.
While some people still believe that new reserves of fossil fuels can still be found in nature, and that this type of energy could still be used to power the world as we know, for centuries to come, the financial and environmental cost of identifying and exploring such reserves, if they do exist, make the search for new fossil fuel reserves an unviable, if not futile, enterprise. This passage serves the rhetorical function of opposing or refuting the idea that fossil fuels can still be used in the future, because it contradicts the idea that it would be possible. To criticize or to question is the rhetorical function of information that casts doubt or goes against something discussed in the text. Check it out. There can be no reason to justify any attempt to maintain the world's dependence on fossil fuels, so the pursuit of such an agenda, either by governments or private corporations, is ultimately irresponsible. This passage criticizes or calls into question the continued use of fossil fuels. To contrast or to compare is the rhetorical function of information given to establish differences or similarities. Like this: unlike fossil fuels, which produce high levels of pollution, many of the alternative energy sources are clean and cause little or no impact to the environment. Remember, the key to answering rhetorical purpose questions is to identify the reason why the writer included the information mentioned in the question. With practice, it can become easy to choose the correct alternative. Vocabulary questions. These questions are usually not so difficult, especially when we have a good range of vocabulary, which we will certainly develop while we are studying to take the exam, if we don't have it already. These questions ask you to choose a word that is closest in meaning to the one that appears in the text. So, there are a few tips which can be good to remember when answering this type of question. Remember that words can have more than one meaning, and that many times the meaning of the words depends on the context. Remember that the correct alternative is the one that brings the meaning that the word has in the text. Try to replace the word in the text with the alternative you have chosen, to make sure that the meaning of the text remains the same. If you are familiar with grammar, and know the class of the word in the question, for example, adjective, adverb, verb, noun, you should avoid answer alternatives that offer words from a different class. If we are unsure about the meaning, we can always use the context to help figure out what the word means. Reference questions. In this type of question, instead of the meaning of the word, we need to find out to which word in the text this word is related, what it refers to. Reference questions are usually about pronouns found in the text, like this: they, which. We will call it the question word because it is the word the question is about. Check it out. The word this in the passage refers to the word they. In paragraph 3 refers to. If the question word is a pronoun, it is replacing another word in the text, which will be a noun. Then, the answer to the question will be a noun. In other words, the answer word is the word the question word is replacing. To find the correct answer, we ask a question about the question word. If it is this, we ask, what is this? Or just use what instead of this in the sentence from the text to make it a question. If it is they, we ask who are they? Or just use who instead of they in the sentence from the text to make it a question. We need to find a word that can replace the question word in the text. Do you want to see an example? Let's go. In another experiment, mice were given water with corticosterone, the mouse equivalent of the human stress hormone cortisol, for 4 weeks. This put them into a heightened state of stress and caused them to have fewer methyl groups on gene FKBP5, which increased protein production. The different epigenetic markers lasted for weeks after they stopped receiving corticosterone, which suggests long-term change. 1. The word this in the passage refers to A. Experiment, B. Corticosterone, C. Cortisol, D. Stress. Let's apply our question technique. What is this? Or what puts them into a heightened state of stress? And if the question was 2. The word them in the passage refers to A. Experiment, B. Corticosterone, C. Cortisol, D. Mice. Who are them? Or this puts who into a heightened state of stress. See the answers at the end of the episode. Before I go, note that the most acceptable grammatical form would be, who does this put into a heightened of stress? But it doesn't matter here. The substitution of words is just so that we have a question instead of a statement, and it is possible in certain contexts. Here are the answers to the reference questions. Question 1. The word this in the passage refers to B. Corticosterone. Question 2. The word them in the passage refers to D. Mice. Try replacing the two words with the words in the text and see how they fit. That's it for now. Be sure to catch the next episode of the Reading Block. We are going to talk about other questions types and strategies to have the best score on the TOEFL iBT. Subscribe to the channel and watch this space.